And welcome to another episode of Expert Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Terrell Strayhorn. Terrell, thank you for spending some time with me, man.
My pleasure. Looking forward to the conversation.
It's going to be a fun one. So Terrell is a man of many talents. He founded a company called Do Good Work. He works in the education space primarily, but he's also bridging the gap into corporate America because he understands what it takes to really, see if I get this right, Terrell, to help your team, help your people feel a sense of belonging. And when they do, guess what? They produce better results. They hit their goals. They love life. It's a better culture, and he does that not only in the educational realm, but he's also doing it in the corporate realm. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as we dive into that deep end of that pool, Terrell, tell me, I mean, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
That's exactly right, Michael. So first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I at my core, I'm a professor. I'm a speaker. I am a teacher, and I was a researcher. And so I started my career really trying to understand, you know, things that I observed in my classroom and in the classrooms of my colleagues. And that is some students would come and they'd work hard and they'd study and they'd thrive and they do very well. Some students would come, they sit in the back, they disengage. They struggled academically. Even those who, according to every single metric, were predicted to do well. So I thought, what is it about education? What is it about the classroom? What is it about the space? Well, that's not what I asked. I asked, what is it that causes that sort of difference? And what I learned is it's not just the skills you bring to work or to the space, it's the space itself that can
Hmm.
either amplify your productivity and performance or throw water on it and extinguish all your motivation. So space matters, place matters, team matters, environment matters. And over the course of several years and documented studies that I've published in books and articles, I've learned here's one thing that we underestimate, and that is the power of a sense of belonging.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to belong. They want
Mm-hmm.
to feel special. They want to know that they're needed. I'm talking about not just CEOs and boards and vice presidents. I'm talking about executive assistants, people who run the phones, people who mow the lawn. They want to know that somewhere in the sort of plan for this organization, my contribution matters and someone sees it and they recognize it and they appreciate it. That's what compels people to get up every day and go back to work, whether you're going back to work in a physical location or jumping on a screen and throwing on a blazer, no matter what it is, it's a feeling. And here's what we know about feelings. As a psychologist, I know feelings can't be forced. They've got to be
Hmm.
facilitated. They've got to be nurtured and I can't inject belonging in you, but I can formulate policies, make decisions, offer certain rewards and incentives that will set you up, the team up to be more likely to feel that sense of belonging. When people feel that sense of belonging, productivity is through the roof, deadlines are met, morale is at an all-time high, people are more innovative and creative. That happens whether you're at home, at school, or at work.
Yeah, man, that is so good. Thank you for that background, that perspective, and for the insight that you've gained by asking a really good question, right? And trying to figure out why do some people not thrive?
Yeah.
What's going on here? And when you nailed that environment thing, when you were unpacking all of that, a sense of belonging, the word, and we've used this in business and marketing for years, and it's an okay word, but I think it kind of hits at what you're talking about is the tribe, right?
Yeah.
We all want to have a tribe, and when you're part of the tribe, you feel that you belong. And
Yeah.
when you aren't part of the tribe, you don't. But I've had organizations I've been a part of that I didn't feel like I belonged. I walked into a meeting and everybody else is getting it, and I'm over here going, I don't. It reminds me of, and I don't know, you're probably too young. Sesame Street. All right, I grew up on
Nope, not too young for
Sesame Street.
Sesame Street.
Which one of these things does not belong here?
That's
And it
right.
was like that's all it, because when we belong, it opens up our sense of these are my people. I'm going to lock arms with you. I'm going to do better work. We are going to do better work. Is that what you have found?
I mean, so well stated, Michael, because in fact, in a lot of my trainings and workshops, I use not just Sesame Street, but even at childhood games, where what we're trying to teach as educators and psychologists is the importance of identifying similarity. So there are lots of
Mm,
coloring books and workbooks that students use in the primary ages that will show you a picture of a dog and a horse and a cat in a car. It'll say
right.
which one does not belong. And that's great for starting to train the brain to see associations. But here's the problem, especially in a time where, diversity, equity, inclusion are important. That's not a political statement. It's just that science is true. When people come together with people who are different, magic happens. But here's what we know. For that to work, we don't have to just train the brain to see associations. We also have to cultivate the brain, the mind, the team to create connections where before there were none, right? So the question I have for audiences is, what if the car actually does belong? What is the relationship between the car,
Mm, yeah,
the dog, and the horse? That's
yeah,
what belonging is not about picking your tribe and only finding people who are like you and only working on teams where people think the same way. No, it's finding connections, creating chemistry where there was none before. Now, that doesn't happen automatically. So, as I share with you in the pre-show, I often spend time going across the country talking to leaders, CEOs, industry heads to talk about what are we doing to make sure that our students, our team, our staff, our employees are well equipped to create those connections, right? How are they organized? That's an organizational structure question.
hmm
Are they into teams? Are they into divisions? Division is an interesting word. Lots of companies use it. Then they scratch their head and say, I don't know why people are divided, where they're called divisions, right? What if
that's
they were
right.
called communities or connections or teams? And what's the role of, or what work have we done as a company to think about the sort of alignment of roles? There has to be differentiation of roles,
Right.
of course, or they will get in each other's way. But how do we make sure there's enough connection between what you do and what I do so that we both get celebrated when the product or the deliverable is produced? I feel valued, you feel valued. I feel like you're adding value to the team, and it's reciprocal in that way. Here's what I know is belonging is not a perk. It is actually a business imperative
Mm,
that lots of studies, I quote one quite frequently from 2020 Harvard Business Review, talks about belonging at work being linked to 56% increase in job performance,
yeah,
50% decrease in turnover risk, because when people work in places where they feel like they matter and they belong, one, they're less likely to call out sick. But here's the other thing. My medical friends would say they're less likely to be sick, because when you sit in the place of loneliness, whether
yeah,
you're at work or at home, it registers with your body as physical pain,
yeah,
as physical detriment. So you're less likely to be sick, you're less likely to feel sick, you're more likely to come to work. And when you come, you're more likely to throw yourself in. Belonging isn't just good for morale, it's good for our project, our margins, it's good for our measures and metrics, it's good for the whole business overall. So win-win.
yeah, absolutely. You've hit on so many things there. From a business perspective, okay?
Yeah,
So I want to talk to the audience for just a minute because think about belonging as you talk about your marketing. Because your prospect right now doesn't feel like they belong yet. And your messaging out to your audience should welcome them into your world and help them understand what is your culture here, and it hopefully it'll fit with them, but it might not, and that's okay.
right.
But what you're talking about, Terrell, is important for marketing. It's important for business organizations, for culture. It's also important for CEOs and
Right.
entrepreneurs, because this is a lonely world. We need to make sure we are belonging to mastermind groups, coaching programs of like-minded people so that we can be our best to bring that to our team. Fair?
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, I was just working with a publishing company working with their customer experience team. So these are folks who are not front facing to customers. They're building in this large education publishing corporation the the infrastructure. They're dealing with the websites, and they're dealing with where you purchase materials, and then what happens, the automatic kind of triggers once you purchase a product. But they have a role to play in this as well. One, their belonging at work matters. though they will probably never see each other in person unless the company hosts some large gathering. They're going to always be connected to their supervisor and each other through the screen. But the
Right.
same way that you're smiling at me and I'm smiling back at you, we've got to create those spaces where, one, I'm not telling too much, I hope, but we had a pre-show, right? You can't
Right.
just jump on screen and start talking in a podcast. You got to get to know them. Question for the CEOs, for the team leaders, for the managers: how often are you bringing your remote and virtual teams together? Not to
Mm,
talk about the agenda, but to talk about each other,
yeah.
get to know each other, to know, is that your real wall behind you or is that a virtual wall? Where are you living? How's the weather? Who's in your world? What's your story? Right? We got to do that. The
Yeah.
second thing is people want to know that their work and their contributions matter. So I've spent time working with that particular customer experience team to think about for their managers, when Michael hits the target and he passes something off to Terrell, who I'm able to now use and work. Do we, at the next meeting, do we ever pause for a moment and celebrate
Right.
Mike, his team, contribution? The fact that we met that deadline, we shout people out. We have all these social media platforms. How often do we tag Michael in the post to say, hey, we're excited about not just the company, but the people who power the company? And
Yeah.
here's why. And we tell the world about it. I was doing a study one time with a group in Pennsylvania, and I asked the group, recall a time where you felt the most alive at work. One woman raised her hand. She said, oh, Terrell, it was me. It was when my manager made a post about me on LinkedIn. It was so kind. It was so gracious. It was so positive. She said it brought tears to her eyes. But she said what it meant was she could like that post, share it out. She tells the world, look, I work at a place where I'm making it. I'm not the top dog or the top cat, whatever it might be, but I'm making a contribution and somebody sees me. She didn't have to brag on herself. The manager did it for her. Well, it's not just LinkedIn, right? People go to work because they want to make a living. So we also have to think about how we're collecting data, not just tracking performance and engagement and turnover, but we are looking at salary equity. We're looking at our benefits and our rewards. And we're getting our employee feedback about it. Here's what I would say to the CEOs, to the leaders and the managers: if you're tracking performance, if you're tracking engagement and turnover, but not belonging, you're missing a leading indicator that
Mm.
drives our bottom line.
Yeah, very much so. Because you know as well as I do, and anybody listening, that turnover kills the bottom line because it
That's
costs
right.
so much money, so much time. And now I go at a new person on my team in my division, going, who is this person? Now I've got to build the time, to build the culture, to build the belonging, to spend the time. When if I would have just focused on that earlier, what I'm pretty convinced, Terrell, and you've probably got the research to back this up. I hope is that most people, most people can be a good fit for many organizations
Mhm.
because most people bring a desire to contribute. Most people bring enough brain power. I need to be trained, but I really need to be um, culturized. I need to say, is this the right place for me? Am I the right place for you? And when I understand that culture, that belonging aspect, it's a whole lot more than just pushing buttons, building a website, or contributing in some way. Yeah, I made a sale today. Woohoo! How does that impact everybody, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you think about, I'm in my degrees are in education and psychology. And for some period of my life, I spent time trying to figure out, why am I interested in these two things that are not necessarily going hand in hand? Sure, you can see some connections, but nowadays, especially looking and working in the belonging space, they are perfect bedfellows. I mean, because so much of what we do as humans is actually in pursuit of our belonging. I was in North Carolina yesterday talking to a group at a university, and in walks a guy, in the middle of my presentation. Everyone's distracted by him because he's got this flashy shirt on, he's got this cool hat on. And so I stopped him for a moment and said, just look what just happened. This guy put this loud, flashy, beautiful, but loud and flashy shirt on. Why? He could have worn a plain shirt, but he likes this shirt. And
Yeah.
when he bought this shirt, he probably thought, I'm going to wear this shirt and it's going to get someone's attention.
Hmm.
And today it worked. In the middle of my talk, no matter how much I talked, no matter how fast I was or interesting I was, it caught people's attention. People are knocking, saying, look at that shirt, look at that shirt. So the guy put the shirt on. Why? Because everybody wants to know that they have someone's attention. It's like
Yeah.
when the world meets Cheers, everybody wants to know your name, right? But
Yeah.
by the same token, people want that feeling and we register it, we give it to them when we give them our attention, when we celebrate their small and their big wins, when we pause and be present in the moment to listen to staff, whether they're complaining or celebrating, right? These are the leadership sort of skills and competencies that are so important if we're really going to talk about belonging. To your point, belonging has a lot to do with psychological, emotional, and here's the word, professional safety. People
Mm.
feel a sense of belonging when they feel safe, which is why, I ground my work on belonging in Maslow's hierarchy of need. Maslow told us back in the 50s, 40s that, people want to feel safe and secure. So part of our job as industry leaders, CEO, business heads, is to make sure that we are creating spaces, workspaces, whether they're online or in person, where people feel physically safe. They're
Yeah.
protected from Zoom bombing. They're protected from harassment, whether it's someone from the company verbally or physically, emotionally, harassment and bias. That we have appropriate policies in place that not only prohibit that behavior, but hold people accountable when they violate these values and norms. That's heavy kind of lifting work for a leader to do. But we also feel a sense of belonging when we feel psychologically and emotionally safe. Here it is, Michael. It's when I'm at the meeting and I can challenge the status quo,
Yeah.
that I can ask a question and say, why do we do it that way? Or that I
Mm.
can be honest and say, we're not actually hitting our targets for sales. And I have an idea about why. And I won't be labeled traitorous or a know it all or not part of the team. Or if I've learned something at a previous company that I think could take root here with appropriate modifications and revisions, no one silences me and says, well, we're not there and you're not there anymore. These are the things that people tell me about.
Yeah.
The reason why that's important is when people feel psychologically, emotionally, and physically safe at work, they come alive. People don't innovate
Yeah.
when they aren't safe. People don't experiment when they are worried about being labeled or judged. People can't imagine and think outside the box. In fact, most people shut themselves in box and limit their own ability when they are terrified of judgment, of being
Mhm.
shut down, of being silenced. All right, so I'll shut up and say to all the leaders who will listen to your amazing podcast, here's what you got to do. Make sure that we're creating spaces in our meetings and our retreats where people can ask questions, that we create the feedback loops that allow people to have input into the process, that we have an open and a sort of democratic decision-making process where people can, refine and make incremental adjustments, and we reward that behavior, that you don't have to have it right. We take it quickly. My president at my university says, if you're going to do it, fail quickly, but fail forward, learn
Yeah.
from it, and you're constantly in this process of incremental adjustment and improvement. What we know is that people don't innovate when they don't feel safe. Belonging really becomes the launch pad for some of our boldest ideas.
Yeah, I love that. Man, there's so much there that we probably need to unpack. Don't have time for it today. But think about, as a business owner, talk just really briefly of what you've seen in the companies you've served in helping them have this light bulb moment to go, oh, this is the changes that they've made and the impact that's had on their team, on their profitability, on their growth, both in business and in education. But as you get people fired up in the right way, it's that internal thing to go, this is my place, this is part of who I am, I thrive here. What kind of impact do you think this can really have on a business, small businesses growing, making a difference in local communities, when they really embrace this belonging perspective?
Yeah. So real quick, I'll organize it into sort of three buckets. It's really about how people work, it's where they work and what they work for, right? So
Okay.
I found that people feel a sense of the companies can be quite effective in changing their work conditions, really maximizing, if not optimizing, their outcomes
Mm-hmm.
when they take steps to change how people work.
Mm-hmm.
That all too often companies are structured where we hire amazing experts who are brilliant at their one little area. What people don't often get is the sort of person who understands the full pie, the full enterprise. And so you got these experts these, one of my clients in Atlanta calls it the prima donna effect. You get these prima donnas who are amazing, but they're so amazing at their one thing, they don't understand there's 10 parts to this. And
Right.
so companies that really do the hard work of making sure they bring in experts, subject matter experts, but also part of your onboarding is high level, trying to understand what is our mission? What's our vision? What are our major KPIs? What are the values that will undergird all that we do? And part of those values are around the things that we're talking about: collaboration, collegiality, certainly appropriate diversification of our roles, but integration of these parts. So there's a lot of time spent on like, how does it all fit together? That's a major lift, because once people really understand where their piece fits in this larger plan, you can find that they are more supportive, they're more open, they're more collaborative. So it's about how they work. The second is changes around where they work. What we know is this: today's workplace is impacted by sort of conflict of generations. We've got millennials and Gen Zers working with, baby booms and so many other previous generations. And the problem is not about generations can't come together. We have to do that as a society. The problem is there are generational differences in, one, what we value and how we
Hmm.
do our work, right?
Yes.
So what we're learning that troubles most CEOs and managers and team leaders is this: millennials and Gen Zers prioritize belonging over salary. Doesn't mean they don't want to be paid. They want to be paid. They're not going to do the research. They're going to ask Siri or Alexa or Google to do the research to ask them, like, is this a competitive salary? Or maybe nowadays Chat GPT. Either way, they're going to look at these inequities. So you got to deal with that as your bottom line, major deliverable. But the other thing is they will, sort of transfer, convert, give up another $3,000, $4,000 in salary for every Friday off, or half
Right.
a day on Fridays, or for extended summers. I mean, so we've got to think outside the box. I was just one of my sort of opportunities on the side is around leadership coaching, and have several clients who are Gen Zers making their way through their career, who are not impressed so much with the dollars that they make or the retirement that awaits them, but they are really interested in flexibility. So the question becomes, not just can you have a half day on Friday or maybe a 4-day work week. I'll get the work done, but just give it in 4 versus 5. But maybe I don't come into the office 2 days a week.
Yeah.
These are sort of, here's the thing, revolutionary kinds of ideas for the workplace, right? But
Yeah.
how do you then, here's the part that I think most of my CEO and manager friends deal with or struggle with is, how do I give you a certain package, Michael, to meet what you need,
Right.
and then give Terrell something different at the same company to meet his needs? Because belonging is also about meeting your needs. It's a faith that I've got needs, you've got needs, and that by plugging in this company, part of my needs are going to be met. Well, what are those needs? I got to eat, so you're going to
Yeah.
pay me, right? I got to have a place where I can lay my head, so you're going to pay me enough to be able to get, affordable housing or affordable living at some place that I find comfortable and safe. But it's also about going to a place where I can use my skills, make a contribution, and be celebrated for it. So it's
Right.
about changing how people work. It's about changing where they work, and then lastly, the things that they sort of work for. So we've got to reimagine. Can people? I have a client company who's starting to do more. In fact, they closed down one of their buildings because they don't need
Mhm.
people to come into the building. People aren't coming anyway. So what they've done is they've started offering, as part of their offering package or compensation package, um, subscriptions or memberships to co-working facilities.
Oh,
So
very
their
cool.
people can be all across the nation. Just go to WeWork or whoever. That's not a plug
Yeah.
for them. It's just, and there's so many co-working places out there.
Yeah.
They go there, plug in, hop on screen. If you need to come to the headquarters, come to the headquarters. This is really, I think, sort of revolutionary in changing how we do our work and where we do it. If we can succeed here, what I've seen is that people go to work, turnover reduces, engagement reduces, increases, productivity's through the roof, morale is not an issue. But here's the other thing: when you sort of show up for your people in this way, that you're going to think about it, it's so interesting. We have so many companies that want innovation to be their byline, but they're not terribly innovative in setting up the company and how they run things. But if you can show up for your people in this innovation space, I found that people show up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, again, so many examples, so many things that we could dive deep into. But I think what I'd rather do is help people understand how to follow you, how to connect with you, because
Yeah.
you have and you've probably done more than scratch the surface. You've probably dug a little bit deeper to go, there is something behind this. And what I really appreciate about you is not only you're articulate, you're well educated, but you're bringing a perspective of what we would many times call culture in the
Yeah.
business world. You're putting emotion and connectedness to it in this term of belonging. And I think just even that word makes us stop and say, what do you mean? And
Yeah.
and I think that's really important. It's where leaders, whether you're in business, education, nonprofit, the home, we need to understand belonging and how that can fuel that individual and that organization to achieve more as we do good work. So Terrell, man, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on all things social media at TL Strayhorn. That's Strayhorn. And you can find my company at all things social media at Do Good Work. DOGODD or GOOD work, WORK. Here's the last thing I'd say is like you, few years ago, I got excited about being able to take this message to the world. And so there's a podcast called Do Good Work Podcast. It's powered on Spotify. You can find us there as well.
Awesome. I'm going to grab that and make sure that those links are in the show notes so that you can reach out and learn more from Terrell about belonging in your business, at school, at home. The importance. I mean, we have just scratched the surface on something that's really really important because you're going deeper into the emotions, the psyche of people, and what do we want? What motivates us? It really is that sense of belonging. This is my place. These are my people, and we are going to do amazing things together. Terrell, man, thank you. Thank you
My
for,
pleasure.
well, thanks for being my guest. You've been an amazing guest. I appreciate that. Thanks for your passion that you bring to what you do. I can tell you that you kind of like this, and we need more people like that to communicate at a high level, to lead us, to guide us, to help us understand how can we help our people with a sense of belonging. So, man, thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. What I close with is this. People often ask, like, what are the big things I can do? What I've learned in my research is belonging isn't just shaped by big stuff. It's big, it's a big thing, but it actually is shaped, conditioned by everyday kind of signals and everyday kind of action. So for all of your amazing guests who will listen, small gestures like authentic listening, equitable policies and practices, visible support, representation on the leadership team, and the messaging, as you said earlier, messaging, communication, marketing, send powerful messages. I've talked to CEOs across the globe at this point, and if your team feels invisible, I often tell them, look in the mirror. Belonging is a
Mm.
leadership choice. They're not the only ones who feel that way. Everybody comes to work, whether you're in the boardroom or the classroom, because they want to feel a sense of belonging. And thank you for the opportunity to just bring some of these insights to your platform.
You are welcome, Terrell. Go check out Terrell. Do Good Work podcast. DoGoodWork.com is the website. Check him out. You'll find him all over social media, and you will understand a lot more about how to build your team. And really, as you said, look in the mirror. It starts with you. So, Terrell, thanks so much. Thanks for
Thank
listening
you.
to Experts Speak. Have a great day. God bless.